Welcome to HomeCookin, podcast by yours truly, Bleska, and your chef Alan Kaberi over here. Before we get started, I thought it'd be a good idea to let the world know a little bit about each other. So Alan, how about you lead us off? Tell us about yourself.
Leska, I'm just a kid who's just trying to make it through life, trying to inspire people as much as we can, reach out to all those that need it. But a little bit about myself, I'd say, yeah, just recent grad at Western, going to Fanshawe right now for some sports marketing and just trying to find ways to make a difference, I guess. And I'm glad that we're doing this podcast. And yourself, Leska?
Well, I'm Bleska Mbamba. For the last 5 years, I was a member of the Western Mustang football team. Had some success there, and then that pushed me forward to the CFL draft, where I was drafted by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So that was an exciting time, but unfortunately the circumstances are what they are. But so now I'm trying to find ways to diversify my skill set, and so talking with you, it was a great way that we were just on the same wavelength, and now we have this podcast that we hope to get going for a while. And so this is a great segue into our futures and trying to find our place in the world, as you said. So it's exciting.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better, Bleska. So just quick notes for our listeners for today's episode. We got some interesting topics, and these topics include the big injury in the NFL that recently just happened regarding America's team of the Dallas Cowboys. We're also going to touch on topics such as the firing of Dan Quinn, although we both know, Bleska, that he probably should have been fired earlier.
I want to start off with Dak Prescott personally, because it's a gruesome way to end your season. It was pretty obvious that as soon as he got his foot stuck underneath the tackler there, that there's no doubt that he was going to be done for the game for sure. And then you see the way it was fractured there. So thankfully we saw him. He posted a picture with him and his brother at the hospital, he putting on a brave face, as he would, a respectful man. But this brings in the question of the future for the Dallas Cowboys, and just in general, just contracts and the dynamics that has for the league. It's like you see all the talking about Dak trying to be the guy in Dallas and getting that big max contract that guys like Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes have gotten. But now with an injury like that in your free agency year, that's a big blow. So what are your takes on that?
Well, just tracking back, I would say that, and it's interesting to mention, is that when I think about Dak's injury, one of the first things that come to mind, and it's sort of relatable, is how, like, and all obviously age is a really big difference when it comes to these two guys. It's Alex Smith's injury, right? Like, yeah, he had a pretty gruesome leg injury, and it took him a while to get back. And obviously, he did have an infection or a complication with regards to his injury that could have ended his career. But like, it was a bad injury, and it was very visually like gruesome, right? And Dak's injury
Mm-hmm.
was very very similar in that sense, right? Like, I don't know how you
Mm-hmm.
can come back from such a gruesome injury. Obviously, like, you look at Dak Prescott and you don't see this mobile quarterback that makes the most of his running ability, right? I think as long as, like, if he can get back to how he was, it would be great. But you never know when it comes to such big, like, graphic injuries, man. Like, it takes people a long time, if ever, to get back to such a high level of playing, right? And you see from his stats this year, this guy was going to make a lot of money, even if the
Yeah,
record
man.
doesn't count. So I don't know,
He
man.
had
Like,
some vintage performances too, like I don't know. He cost me a loss in fantasy for sure, especially that week against Atlanta. But
Hey,
that's something you never ever want to see, and that just adds the to the laundry list of big name NFL players with injuries. You got Saquon Barkley, Nick Bosa, McCaffrey, and now you got Dak Prescott also. So hopefully this is not going to be a trend for the league, but I really do want to see Dak come back to this better player. I mean, you see guys like that have had these terrible injuries, like you said, Alex Smith. He was out there today after Kyle Allen was hurt for the Redskins.
right.
So he finished the game, and to me it was kind of tough way to start going up against Aaron Donald the first time you get back. But still, like you see how Paul George was able to return from his gruesome injury like years
Exactly.
back at the Olympics trials or practices. But yeah, so prayers up to Dak Prescott and his family, and I hope that he can find a way to overcome and just be better than he was, because that's someone that's always had a chip on his shoulder, and I don't think that's gonna be something that lacks going forward.
For sure. And I know that like I always had a bit of an affinity towards Dak Prescott, especially Bluska. If we're gonna relate this to our experiences, I still remember when like when I was helping you with your fantasy teams early on. And
Yeah.
I think I told you, yo, you gotta pick up this guy in the middle rounds. Like this guy
hmm
might actually show. And
Yeah, that was his rookie year.
yeah,
He got. I think I was in the finals against that. Shout out to Mackenzie Ferguson. I think he beat me that year. But
it,
yeah, it was. He was like getting rushing touchdowns. He was solid. He put Tony Romo out of starting job, which is anybody knows how good Tony Romo was in his heyday. He was a gunslinger for sure. But Dak had a lot of promise, and I hope not something that it's gonna alter his path and journey in the NFL.
for sure. And I think one other big thing we got to talk about with regards to Dak Prescott, and like you said, and you mentioned earlier, like just looking forward, specifically if you take the context of the Dallas Cowboys. So what do you like, Leska? What do you think about his future? Like it blows my mind how something like an injury of this nature could affect his number one like potential earnings, and number two like his role on this team if he still even has
hmm
one going forward. Like you believe that Jerry Jones is going to decide that I don't know if I can invest or take a risk on this investment
hmm
or what?
And you already look at the Dallas Cowboys and their record right now. I think they're 2-3 after they were able to, get the dub for Dak today. But begs the question. It's like you have your franchise quarterback a losing record, and your defense was not holding up its end of the bargain in most games, even though you're putting up 30 points. It's like, do you try to rebuild as soon as possible, like in free agency at the end of the year? But it really shakes the organization. Like Jerry Jones has a lot of like decision making to do now. Like honestly, for me to answer that question, I couldn't even tell you because it's pretty early in the event. I guess we still weather the storm. Would you take a chance here, or do you think the NFL is just the machine that it is and it's next man up?
Well, it's big because yeah, just looking at his contract situation, he was heading towards free agency, right? And
hmm
Dak he declined already a huge contract offer by the Cowboys, which
Yeah,
was I think reported for I think 4 or 5 years, but only like 100 million, which obviously is a lot,
only.
right? But I mean, the way he's been playing, he's trying to reach that Deshaun contract, or in
hmm
ideal world, um, Russell Wilson's like average per year. Obviously,
Yeah,
he's not going to hit Mahomes though, but yeah, Dak was cooking this year, and he was on his way to making a lot of money, and now he might not even get good contract offer. I I could see Jerry like I don't know, like Jerry Jones might not even want to sign him long term. They might just franchise him, and even that is like unrealistic depending on the nature of the injury. Like I
Hmm.
think he must be out for the year just by how graphic that
Yeah,
injury.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then
And
you already see guys like Shannon Sharp and Des Bryant voicing their opinions, like at Jerry Jones on Twitter, telling him you better take care of Dak. So, it's like now it begs the question of the blurred lines between business and relationships.
but yeah, I mean, but Bleska, I don't know how you can justify it, to be honest.
Hmm.
And like if you
Unfortunately, that's the name of the game.
yeah, if you look at it like a business, you can't just invest in a losing stock, right?
Hmm.
Or something like obviously, I don't know. People can bounce back for sure, but if if he's not the same, you wouldn't want to put the same amount of money on him at the moment, and that makes sense. You're not gonna pay someone who isn't gonna be what you expect.
I see. That's why I'm putting my vote in for Dak, comeback player of the year, 2021 or 2022, whenever he's ready. I'm on his side.
Putting that on record, all right. What a guy.
On record.